The man seen on this train attacking Irina Zarutska, the young woman who moved to the U.S. from Ukraine to escape war back home, is facing federal murder charges, and President Trump is calling for the death penalty, writing that DeCarlos Brown should be given a quick trial and only awarded the death penalty. There can be no other option.
The repeat offender who stabbed a young Ukrainian refugee to death on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina, has been charged by federal authorities with federal murder charges. Now, DeCarlos Brown Jr., the suspect in this fatal stabbing, is also facing state murder charges and has not entered a plea yet. Now, let's talk a little bit about the details of the crime. So the suspect is 34 years old. Again, his name is DeCarlos Brown. He was arrested on August 22nd after police say he stabbed and killed 23-year-old Irina Zarutska 3 times while riding the Lynx Blue Line in Charlotte. Now, the Justice Department says that Brown is eligible for the death penalty, considering he is facing federal murder charges. Brown has been charged by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Western District of North Carolina with committing an act causing death on a mass transportation system. And as I alluded to earlier, he does have a criminal history, along with some indication that he suffers from schizophrenia. We'll get to the mental health condition in just a minute, but first, let's give you his record. So since 2007, Brown has had at least 14 separate cases in the criminal court system, specifically in Mecklenburg County, which is where Charlotte is. When he was 22, for instance, Brown was charged in at least 4 separate cases that included shoplifting, larceny, breaking and entering, and felony conspiracy. Now, court records show that he was in fact convicted of all of those charges with the exception of conspiracy. He was not found guilty of that. Now, less than a year later, Brown pulled a gun on a man in the middle of the day at a Charlotte apartment complex and robbed him of his cell phone and $450. Now, in that case, Brown actually pleaded guilty and served some time behind bars. He served 6 years in prison in addition to 1 year of probation. Now, within months of his release, though, Brown was charged with assaulting his sister, and according to a local television station, even Brown's mother has blamed the courts for allowing her son to be out in the community. And guys, look, this story is very specific to what happened in Charlotte, but I want to be clear. This issue has been happening across the country, where you have people who clearly are not well, who are mentally ill. You have their family members pleading with authorities to do something because they might have schizophrenia and they refuse to take their medication. They are a threat to themselves and a threat to others. But local communities don't do anything about it, mainly because, there's a pretty well-organized effort to prevent institutionalizing people who have severe mental health issues like schizophrenia and refuse to take their medication. The ACLU is one organization that's been, pretty effective in their fight against involuntary institutionalization of people. Have a point. In other cases, they don't have a point, and they are putting local communities in jeopardy as a result of that. But let me give you a few more details. So we also know that Brown could have faced some federal charges back in 2014 when he was a felon in possession of a firearm. However, federal prosecutors did not take the case, and the state charge was dropped in exchange for that guilty plea on the robbery charge that we talked about earlier. Then in January of this year, police were called as Brown was in the hospital. When they arrived, that's when records say Brown told them someone gave him a man-made material that was controlling him. Officers advised Brown that the issue was a medical issue and that there was nothing further they could do, a police report says. Brown became upset with officers, or officers' answers, and with officers still on the scene, called 911 to speak with police. Apparently, he called 911 repeatedly. And at that point, officers arrested him on a charge of misuse of 911. A judge later released him without bail. So if you hear some on the right talk about this stabbing death in Charlotte and how he was released without bail, that's what they're referring to. But I mean, someone calling 911 repeatedly is not really a public threat, if you ask me. If you take his entire record into account and his mental health condition into account, then we're having a different conversation. But after that, the train stabbing happened. So before I get to his mental fitness, Cenk, I want to hear from you and what you think about this.
Yeah, first I want to hear from the audience, although I'm a little worried about it this time. So we do live chats throughout the day, right? When we do the broadcast 6 to 8 o'clock Eastern every day, Monday through Friday. So in this case, we're asking in the chat, should the stabbing suspect receive the death penalty? Yes, no, and I'm not sure. Wow, yes is winning dramatically at 58%. All right, guys, so here's my take on it. And so I don't fully agree with that. So is this a super serious case? Yes, obviously, it's a murder, right? So is my top concern the well-being of the person who did it? No, but is that among my concerns? Sure, why? Because we have to have the right rules and we have to apply them right, otherwise we're gonna have extremes in both directions. So one side says, okay, let's kill this person, whether they're mentally well or not. And by the way, some of the people that voted in the poll might not know about his mental health. We didn't even quite get to that yet. So I'm not saying about you guys, but I'm saying politicians, right? So on the other side, unfortunately, we have some on the left who say, or ACLU, whatever, right? Saying, no, do nothing, it's freedom. No, I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah, what do they think about his freedom right now? I'd like to know, what does the ACLU have to say about his freedom today as he is now facing the literal death penalty?
Yeah.
I just don't get it. I really don't get it. Okay, like let's let people who are obviously suffering from severe mental health issues that could lead to them harming themselves, number one, but also more importantly, harming others, murdering others. Okay, so let's just wait for that to happen so they can get arrested and then spend the rest of their life in prison or even get the death penalty. How does that make any sense? It makes me so angry, but go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, so look, it doesn't have to be either extreme. We either do nothing or the death penalty for someone who's not mentally well, if they're adjudicated that way, right? So if he does not have mental health problems, then in that fact pattern, I'm against death penalty, so I say a life sentence. But I think life sentence is super easy and obvious. Of course, life sentence. He took someone's life, he should have a life sentence. So that's my take on it. If you're for the death penalty, I understand that this is a case that you would want to apply it. Now, if it's true that he has a mental health problem, to me that puts it in a different category. So that category then is where it gets interesting, because I am for involuntarily institutionalizing some people, okay? So now, okay, obviously you have to clarify what that means, because in the old days, we had the bad old days where they would involuntarily institutionalize way too many people, and their standards for institutionalizing people were terrible, and the places they sent them were even worse. Number one, we don't have to have terrible institutions that take care of people's mental health. We should have great institutions that do that. So number two, just because they abused it back then doesn't mean we have to abuse it today. So we should have very strict standards for doing something that's involuntary. It has to be a high bar, not like, hey, Bobby thinks that Susie's acting a little strange, let's lock her up. No, hell no, right? And there's got to be a process and doctors and a clear determination. But once you have that clear determination, no, you got to go. No way that you're going to be in the streets. I don't care about all freedom. You crazy? Are you crazy? I mean, then maybe you should have a mental health check too. Because so you want folks who are not mentally well and could cause significant violence to themselves or others to just be walking around because of freedom? No, hell no. No, we got kids, we got parents, we got everyone. We're not gonna just let mentally unwell, but that is what we have now. We have an insane system. Yeah. We're mentally unwell for allowing it. Oh, you're not well, you're literally crazy, and you've done other acts of violence or broken other laws before? Oh yeah, sure, walk around. That makes no sense, no way.
And these attacks, let's just note, tend to happen on public transportation, places where the elite, if you will, don't have to worry about using if they need to go to and fro work. Like, let's just keep it real. And so I wanna just note one other thing. Nothing helps feed into the desires of neoliberals who do not want to spend any resources on public services than this ideology that just essentially says, oh no, we're doing it for freedom. No, it's not about freedom. Okay, for the ACLU, I think they're actually sincere they really do believe they're protecting people with what they're pushing. However, when it comes to policymakers, they don't want to spend tax revenue on well-funded, humane mental health facilities that are run by counties. That's an expensive thing to do, isn't it? Yeah. So that's something else to take into consideration when it comes to why policymakers make the decisions they do, both on a local level and state level, and quite frankly, on a federal level as well. I mean, every time the topic of allocating money for mental health comes up, I mean, it keeps getting shot down with the majority, if not all Republicans voting against it. We need to fund mental health facilities. They need to be humane. And you're right, Cenk, there need to be safeguards to ensure that the only people who are involuntarily institutionalized are people who have very severe mental health issues and pose a threat to themselves and to others. Now, I want to talk about his mental fitness and what we know so far, because there are some details here that are worth getting into. So I mentioned Brown's mother earlier, and she has been speaking out about what she's experienced with her son. So Brown's mother, according to AP News, Michelle DeWitt, told local television she sought an involuntary psychiatric commitment this year after he became violent at home. Doctors diagnosed him with schizophrenia. But it is incredibly, incredibly difficult to have that request fulfilled. And I know that from people I know personally in California. It is very difficult to do. So here's more on what we know about Brown's mental health.
Court documents show Brown is undergoing a psychiatric evaluation in prison. Brown's sister recording a phone call with her brother after his arrest, where he referred to himself in the third person, telling her,
"Why would somebody just stab somebody for no reason?"
His mother telling ABC News she kicked him out of her house after he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and refused to take his medication. Brown's criminal history has been cited by many on the right as an example of violent crime plaguing Democratic-led cities. Today, Republican officials in Charlotte spoke out.
This is a result of failed policies, weak leadership, and a judicial system that protects criminals instead of innocent individuals.
Please allocate the funding for mental health facilities for inpatient mental health care. Like, it's so utterly important to do that. So if Republicans are serious about it, there's certainly something they can do on their end. The left, I don't know. I think that they, for the most part, are in line with what the ACLU wants. And I think that's a mistake. I really do. But, I don't want to say that it's the entirety of the left. I want to be clear about that.
No,
but the most vocal.
I don't know that I agree with that, Anna. So I'm gonna come back to that in a second. First, I want to go to a member on TYT.com. Don Dada Dragon said, the issue is the knee-jerk reaction from Trump, who wants to institutionalize in places like Alligator or Alcatraz. Furthermore, private prisons definitely would not get a big payoff. I'm open to mental health care facilities. I just want it done right. So to me, I think that speaks for us. And we don't have to go to extremes, guys. Constantly pushing to extremes, right? It's either Alligator or Alcatraz for mentally ill people. Why? Or just let them go, and then hopefully they don't stab you. That's the worst. Like, those are both horrible options. Good mental health facilities is the correct option. So Anna, the only reason I said it, I think that if you show that video and have this conversation with people that are on the left in the country, the voters, etc. I think that the overwhelming majority would say, oh yeah, we totally agree with you guys. Mental health facilities, don't let them walk around, etc. So you're referring to some activists in the cities that do say, no, it's all about freedom, etc. Yeah, they definitely call themselves left. They definitely say they're progressives. But to me, that's not really a progressive position to say, oh yeah, I'm okay with injustice that happens to working class people because someone who was unhoused did it. What? No, that's not a progressive position. I think that's an extreme libertarian position. And
it is a libertarian position, but yeah, but anyway, okay. I don't want to get into a debate about whether the left is in favor of what we're seeing in big cities all across the country. But anyway, the other thing that I want to just quickly mention is there is something wrong with our society. We have become so desensitized to violence that for over 2 minutes after this poor woman was stabbed, no one did a damn thing. I could not believe it. So I did not want to show a video of the stabbing, to be honest. It's gruesome, and I just don't think you need to see it. If you want to see it, it's online. You can do it if you want. But I do want to show what happened in the immediate aftermath of the stabbing. Okay, so that's what you're watching right now. So she's just been stabbed 3 times. She's bleeding out. And no one on this train is doing a damn thing. Nothing. No, he's walking around. We can't show you, the blood because of YouTube, terms of service, but he's carrying the knife that he just used to stab this woman. It's dripping with blood. You can see blood dripping all over the train's floor. And people are just sitting there. I don't know what to say about it. It's heartbreaking. And honestly, I have seen far too many videos that are similar. Maybe it's not a stabbing, it's some other act of violence, but it's become normalized. That's the point that I'm trying to make. It's become normalized. You're just supposed to accept it and you're not supposed to react to it at all.
Yeah, no. So look, when you have someone whose life is on the line there, and she got stabbed and her reaction was one of such shock. You saw it there in the video as blood is coming out and nobody's doing anything. Look, there was some, there's a lot of the good old days that weren't good at all, right? And a lot of that is romanticized. But there was one thing in the old days that was a good thing. And that was when people looked out for one another. And there was a community. And if somebody was hurt in your community or attacked in your community, people would rally. And men would be men, and they would go and try to help people. And yeah, I said it, and I don't mind saying it. And if you are offended by that, oh no, well, you can't put it in gender terms or whatever. No, a man is supposed to protect. Sorry, but that's just reality. And so I'm not putting it on you that, hey, the guy's got a knife. I don't need you to be the hero of heroes, right? But go help her. Go help her. And I hope everybody does it. But come on.
I know. I agree with you, and I think that man or woman, anyone who feels confident enough to step in some way and just at least apprehend the guy in some way so he doesn't potentially hurt someone else. But there's also a risk in doing that. And I'm not just talking about the individuals who step in potentially getting hurt themselves. If they accidentally do something that harms the perpetrator here, well, then they could potentially face criminal charges as well. So it's just the whole situation is really messed up, and it could be avoided if you have, schizophrenia and refuse to take their medication. People who have severe mental health issues are given the treatment that they need. And that's just not happening right now.
Yep.
We're not tackling the root of the problem.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.